Greetings, fellow songwriters and seekers, and welcome back to Muse and Measure. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the guy on the lotus pedal and join us for future insights into songwriting and spirituality. Speaking of, Randall from Salt Lake City asks a very deep esoteric question about the connections of the spiritual and the musical. He asks, how does rhythm function spiritually in a song? Is it a grounding element, urgency, resistance, or surrender? Well, I don't know if it's any of those, but let's dive in and see. So if you want to get to the spiritual plane, you're dealing with, we live in two different worlds, right? We live in a time-based world, a profane world, some people might think of it, and a kind of a higher world, which is the spiritual world. So we have a spiritual self and we have a bodily self. And I'm not comfortable with that dichotomy. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think they're all connected. I don't think that, first of all, I don't believe in a separate soul to the body. I believe it's all connected, but that doesn't take away the spiritual aspect. And a lot of people don't believe that you can have that you have to have a separation of body and spirit in order for there to be anything really spiritual. I think that, the body itself, through its billion little processes, creates consciousness. And that consciousness is based in something that is bigger than ourselves. Consciousness is something that permeates the whole universe. And it connects us with other beings, because they are also conscious. So as far as related to sound and music, and there's the whole music of the spheres that the ancients used to believe in, where the alignment of the planets and where they were in the solar systems at certain times, it created some kind of vibration that was the music of the spheres. So music really is kind of this breaking up of the eternal. The eternal is what is everlasting, it's outside of time. And then you have what we experience as human beings, which is time itself. And that is rhythm, in my estimations anyways. That you have, if you want to take the Om, that old kind of basis of a lot of spiritual chants, the Ah, U, and then the silence that it comes out of, that would be an eternal sound. And when people chant that, they go Om, and then they just go through the whole breath. Of course, that's not the cosmic Om, because the cosmic Om never ends. It's what's underlying. It's the spiritual basis for things. You could say it's the consciousness underlying everything, the intelligence that's underlying everything that makes everything possible. And then what breaks the Om is the rhythm, and that's what we experience as time. And that's, I think, why certain art forms are so potent to connect with our experience, and they resonate so much with us, is that we experience this eternal consciousness. It's what's underlying, and it's what's eternal within us, because it's always there. We always have this awareness. Even when we sleep, there's a level of awareness. Otherwise, we wouldn't wake up when something disturbed us, or we wouldn't have dreams, or our body wouldn't be doing all these processes that are keeping us alive and rejuvenating us. So that eternal is always there, but our experience and the way our mind deals with the eternal and this constant flow of information, that is time-based, and that is what is rhythmic. So you have this breaking up of that constant Om, which could be all the notes, all the possible notes, or just one note. But as we've seen in the overtone series, one note contains a myriad of notes. So rhythm is really about this communication of this time-based thing. And so events happen in your song that are breaking up of this eternal. And the choices you make is what delivers a certain experience of breaking up this eternal. You could just play something really, really long and extended, and that would be a musical piece too, and an experience. But it's less tied to what we experience as human beings. Now, if you're someone who's been on a meditation retreat for the last year and you've been spending hours and hours a day in meditation, maybe a piece where it's just one long note held for a really long time would resonate with you more, because you're more tied in with that eternal aspect of existence and more connected with your own basic awareness. In fact, there's this great piece where they played Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, but it stretches out over 24 hours. And if I can find it, I'll put a link down below in the description. It's worth listening to, at least part of it. And so you have this very long, extended, notes, and this what is normally very fast-paced or definitely time-based is stretched out, so you really experience it as this expansive connection with this basic consciousness or awareness. And when we're writing our own music, obviously we're not doing that, but the choices we make for how long to hold notes are kind of tied to this also sense. So usually the more rhythmic something is, the more thought-based it is, because you're usually spitting out a lot more words and concepts when you are doing something that's much more fast-paced rhythmically. Even if it's music that doesn't have lyrics, you're giving these little nodes of information in a much quicker succession, as opposed to having one thing where we're just focusing on that one note, and maybe that is just more of a reflection back on our own consciousness. Like it resonates with this basic awareness, as opposed to this other layer, which is our thinking mind, which is dealing with the flow of things and turning them into concepts so we can survive our day-to-day life. Now, the downfall for us, I think the fall, and this ties in with the Christian notion of the fall, is this eating of from the tree of knowledge, or the tree of good and evil, I should say, the knowledge of good and evil. This ties into this because by getting that knowledge, we turn the world into dead concepts, and that's why you have the myth of the Garden of Eden. When they're cast out, that's where they start to know death. They start to know the difference between man and woman, between man and animal, between man and God. So underlying all that is this open awareness, which is not dualistic and does not break things into opposites or even break things into concepts. And so that is always with us, and we can tap into it, and that is a great solace to us. And that is, for me, that's the spiritual plane. Now, that doesn't mean that when you're in your thinking mind that spiritual plane is erased, that they're at odds with each other. They're just two ways of experiencing the world. Now, what we have to struggle with as human beings and as we get older and older is that the whole world doesn't turn into these dead concepts, that we no longer experience the awe and newness that experience offers us as a way to reconnect with that eternal. So I'm being very esoteric and philosophical with this, but I think the question begs it, and I think it's a beautiful question and one to think about. I don't know how practical it is for your own songwriting, but I think it's really cool to think about, and as a way to meditate and approach music, especially music that you're not necessarily familiar with, or music that goes against popular techniques and maybe cliches that we hear in pop music or rock music, but that certain artists have brought in. Certainly when the Beatles did Tomorrow Never Knows, that underlying drone that was added in is that kind of sense of the eternal within the timed bass events. Of course, there's a lot going on in that song on top of it. But if you listen to Indian classical music, when Ravi Shankar brought it over and introduced it to the West, he, of course, shortened the songs a lot so that they were much more palatable to the average listener. Certainly, in the beginning of an Indian raga, you have this thing called the alap, which can sometimes take hours, where it's very, very slow and drawn out, where they're just playing with the little nuances between the notes of the raga and really building it up slowly. And it's mainly about that underlying drone, that basic consciousness, and these little flurries that come out of it. So if you listen to that type of music with this in mind, I think you will see how that connection with the spiritual and the rhythmic comes in, and how you have this gradual becoming and a building on intensity, but you still have that underlying consciousness underneath it. So that's always there for us to tap into, and I think hopefully be our guide in life, that as frantic as we get, as neurotic as we might get, as obsessed and concept-driven as we might get, we always have that as the basis of our being that we can return to. And I think as we get older, it's much more important for us to return to it, because otherwise we can become these kind of fossilized museums of dead concepts and just start hating the world and getting very grumpy and curmudgeonly about things because they're not the way we expect them to be, because things are always in a state of becoming and newness. And so it's just like, one more metaphor for you to swallow or to think about. The ocean would be that eternal, and then the waves on top of it would be these little time-based things, the rhythm of the ocean. But underneath that is this huge body of water, which is actually quite still in relation to the tiny little blips of waves that happen on the surface. Think about how deep the ocean is, and the water is fairly still, or even, it's just subtly moving. So stillness maybe is the wrong idea for it, because it's this constant flow of things, but it's this eternal flow that is never stops becoming and becoming new. All right, well, this is really hard to talk about because it is so kind of underlying thought and kind of shirks any concepts itself. But I thank you very much, Randy. And if you guys disagree with anything I said, or you think that I missed an important aspect of this, I would love to have this conversation continue. So write your comments down below, and write any other suggestions that you might have there. If you like this video, please hit the like button, and even better, hit the subscribe button so you can be here for the next video on these spiritual and musical conversations. All right. Thanks again, Randall, and thanks to you all for watching. Have a good day.